Hiya and welcome to my Project Management Coursework 1 7002 SSLA. Main aim of this video is to critically evaluate and integrate project and stakeholder management and also apply stakeholder management techniques and tools to the scenario of higher education facility being built with 10 classrooms consisting of 2 300 student capacity lecture halls, 8 seminar rooms with a capacity of 30 students each. The purpose of this higher education facility is to maximize student engagement for face-to-face, online and hybrid students. Firstly, it is important to understand what is project management. Project management is the discipline of planning, organizing and managing resources to bring about the successful completion of specific project goals and objectives. The second element of project management is systematically identifying stakeholders, analyzing their needs and expectations. For project management, you need to constantly engage with them for the various elements of the project and also ensure the status and quality of the relationship with the various stakeholders is to a high standard. For project management to be successful, Tinarello 2017 mentions that there should be 7 basic steps. Break the project down into measurable tasks, determine the inter-task dependencies, assign lengths to each task, assign resources to each task, refine the plan, and communicate, revise and update the project status regularly, performing a post-implementation review. Project management triangle is a theory made up of 3 variables which are interlinked: quality, cost, and time, leading to the outcome for scope. Cost is related to the budget. For successful project management, the cheaper the project, the more better for all of the stakeholders. However, quality at the top cannot be compromised. The quality has to be good. And below, the schedule has to be met to ensure the fact that quality is of a high standard and the costs are kept as minimal as possible. For project management to be successful, you need to choose your priorities, whether it's quality, cost, or schedule. You also need to set clear expectations with your stakeholders and any sponsors, and constantly update any changes to the budget, schedule, and scope adjustments. The project management triangle has several advantages. This would be useful for the higher education facility to be built, as it would allow us to allocate resources accordingly to the different elements of the building. Also, it ensures quality, and all 3 elements of the project management triangle are interconnected, ensuring the building is of a high standard. However, there are some limitations to using the project management triangle. For the triangle to be balanced, quality is equal to the combination of cost and time. However, this is not always the case throughout projects. Sometimes the quality may need to be increased. However, this will also increase the time, and also quality may increase, but this may also increase the cost. So they will never be balanced. Furthermore, to break down the 3 different variables of the triangle, costs would fluctuate due to supplier increase in prices, foreign exchange fluctuations, also broadening the scope of the project if there are any staff changes or improvements in technology which need to be implemented in the project. Also time, where the client may request additional deliveries, there may be a delay in supply from vendors, technological problems where they need to be fixed, and also underestimation of a task which is key. And finally, the quality. The quality also needs to be of a high standard at all times to please the stakeholders. So this may cost more money or more time, and also sourcing the goods may take time. These diagrams by Project Management Blueprint show how all elements are interconnected. For example, if quality is better, it would lead to a better product scope. However, if quality is worse, it will reduce the product scope and all other elements. If you were to further apply the project management triangle to the scenario of the higher education facility to be built, construction workers will be key to the time. Also, this may be delayed due to health and safety risk management. To ensure the fact that this project is built quickly, it will be important to ensure materials are available as well. The costs should be reasonable depending on the budget set by the finance manager, and this can be looked at over a Gantt chart, and it cannot overrun. And the quality of the project needs to be of a high standard to allow maximum amount of hybrid learning for students. Further to this, it is important when completing a project that managers look at the work breakdown structure. This is where you break smaller tasks into a common productivity technique used to make the work more manageable and approachable. For the higher education facility to be built, there needs to be 5 different elements of the work breakdown structure: design, procurement, construction, inspections, and turnover, which are broken down further into several different elements. To take this further onto the next step, project managers will need to do a level 2, which will involve allocating money to each sector.
As previously mentioned, it is important to have a Gantt chart for the higher education facility project. The Gantt chart will allow us to constantly look at the progress of the project from start to finish. However, for this to be effective, it needs to be constantly updated. Further to this, the Gantt chart also interlinks with project management triangle of the cost and time elements.
To look further into project management, it is important to understand stakeholders. A stakeholder is generally a individual or group of individuals that are directly or indirectly impacted by an entity or a task.
There are different roles of stakeholders. Right from the outset, you have decision makers, and for the higher education facility, this would be a project manager. You'll also have the CEO of the higher education facility and the finance manager. Further to this, there are influencers. These will be the council and local authority who have influence over the project and the direction it may go in. There are also players. These players are very important as they would lead to the creation of the project itself. So you have a construction company, and you also have the DFE who may look at health and safety management. You also have observers who will be experts in providing opinions based on their previous knowledge and expertise, and they will direct the stakeholders and influence them. And then you have stakeholders who give consent. They will consent decisions made if the project is to be successful, like the foreman for the higher education facility. Overall, it is important for the successful project. It generally depends on whether stakeholders are happy with the project's result.
When trying to identify stakeholders, it is important to look at a series of questions, whether they're directly or indirectly involved, who may be affected or not affected by the project's outcome, if anyone gains or loses anything from the project's success, and who are the suppliers, who are the end users of the project, its competitors and shareholders, and how the local community or authority may be impacted by the outcome of this project, and also who can make your project fail. It is important to understand and answer all of these questions to ensure you have identified all stakeholders for the project to be successful.
After identifying all of the stakeholders, I think the most important part of stakeholder management is the register. The register will allow us to understand the stake in the project of the different stakeholders, what they could gain and contribute, the possible damage they could cause, and also the type, power and influence and interest they may have over the project itself. And it will also allow us to easily identify the best communication means. Overall, this register needs to be constantly updated throughout the project. When looking at the register, it's important to also identify whether stakeholders are external or internal, depending on the influence they have and how much control you have. For external, they can be split up into public and private, where in the public area you have emergency services, local businesses, the government and the local authority. And for private external stakeholders, you have local residents and landowners and possibly pressure groups or activists. For the internal element of stakeholders, you have the supply side and the demand side. The supply side is what is needed to actually build the higher education facility, and the demand side would be the end users, potentially like the teaching staff, support staff, students, parents and the site team. This links into the stakeholder register, where you look at power and influence of stakeholders. You can do this by using the stakeholder grid or stakeholder 5v5. This will allow you to identify which stakeholders you need to manage actively and which stakeholders you just need to keep an eye on or keep informed or just give general communications. However, project managers need to be aware that at different stages throughout the project, stakeholder grid may change depending on the priorities.
In this diagram, you can see the negative, mixed and positive impact stakeholders would have depending on the influence and interest they have. So engineers would have a high influence and high interest with a positive impact.
Overall, there are many advantages and disadvantages of using the stakeholder grid and matrix. The advantages is that it allows you to identify who to communicate with and identify who are the key stakeholders. However, the level of interest may change and influence may change throughout different stages of the project, and new key stakeholders may emerge. On the other hand, at times, stakeholder management does fail. Satterfield et al. 2006 emphasized that project managers should help educate project stakeholders in new approaches to reduce their resistance to change. Furthermore, failures with stakeholders happen throughout projects. This is due to a breakdown in communication, stakeholders losing interest, and the failure to understand the power and interest of stakeholders using the different techniques mentioned previously, and the failure to understand stakeholders' expectations. Overall, Freeman et al. Mentioned stakeholder groups hold the keys to failure on a project.
Thank you very much for listening and watching.